Now, that was SMU basketball right there, and it's about time that we said something like that.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Locked On SMU and a fresh week here on the show on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. We are the daily podcast covering SMU Mustangs athletics. Appreciate you making us your first listen of the day. My name's Grayson Singleton. Glad you're with me as always. And our show today is brought to you by FanDuel. The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with a bet on FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Coming up on the show today, Jaron Pierre is becoming a real bona fide star. And I'll tell you why and what I think about his game as he's continued to get better over the course of the season. Plus, SMU basketball now, after the win, is entering a danger zone with these next couple of games. I'll tell you why that is later on in the show. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But let's start with the game on Saturday afternoon against Pitt. And SMU played its brand of basketball, and they got rewarded for it. Now, if you remember on Friday, that was a day where I thought that SMU really needed to just kick Pitt's teeth in. Just kick their teeth in, man. Because Pitt is not a very good team. They're a bottom feeder in the conference. One of the worst in a lot of offensive and defensive categories in the ACC. And I just didn't think that was going to be a team that needed to be hanging with SMU. Now, to Pitt's credit, they started off pretty well. You're at home, crowds behind you. The other team had to travel cross country to get there. So SMU took a little bit to settle in. I'm not going to focus on that today. I'm not. You can parse and dissect all of that. To me, Pitt came out on fire. They came out ready to play. SMU was a better team. It just took them a little bit to settle in and then ultimately separate. But one of the stats from this game that really epitomizes SMU basketball is that the Mustangs forced 12 turnovers and they turned it into 25 fast break points. That's SMU basketball right there. We talked about this all season long, that when they play in the open floor and they can dictate pace and they can get a bunch of shots up and whatnot, this SMU basketball team is going to be very hard to beat. And Pitt found that out the hard way. You can't turn the basketball over against SMU because they will get out and run. They'll use their athleticism and speed to really beat you. And Jaron Pierre got in on the act. Boopie Miller got in on the act. BJ Edwards got in on the act when it came to this. That's the SMU basketball that you've been wanting to see. But it all starts defensively. And when they can turn their defense into offense, their game just gets so much easier. Boopie Miller had an easier time. Everybody had an easier time. Like, here were the guards for SMU in this game. Boopie Miller, 7 of 11, his most efficient game since he got sick. Jaron Pierre Jr., we'll talk about him in more detail in a little bit, but he was 8 of 11, and BJ Edwards was 2 of 5. The guards knocked down 17 of 27 shots. It is no coincidence that SMU played its brand of basketball, scoring 25 fast break points, and their guards were some of the most efficient that I have seen from SMU in a hot minute this season. There was no coincidence to that. This is SMU's formula. Now, will it look like a 19-point win against some of the better teams in the country? Not necessarily, but this is the formula. This is the blueprint. Get physical, turn people over, create live ball turnovers, and turn them into fast break points. They turned 12 turnovers into 2 points in the fast break per turnover. That is an excellent clip. That is a winning clip. And that is going to be something that can carry you into the third and fourth rounds of the ACC tournament and maybe to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. So that was a really good night. It was a really good day, I guess. for SMU. Another thing that we need to pay attention to when it comes to SMU is how they dominated the interior. That is a big, big deal. They dominated the paint, outscoring Pitt 44-26 in the paint. That's huge because that'll tell you that your dudes on the interior were doing work. Jaden Toombs came out with 10 points. Samedi Gatolu with 15, so 25 between the two on 11 of 16 shooting. I'll take it. I'll take it. Pitt's not the greatest team, I know. But one thing I said on Friday that needs to be reiterated here is that you have to get back to playing your brand of basketball and seeing success while you do it. Because when you can see success, that's how the confidence starts to grow, regardless of what team it's against. Regardless of what team it was against. SMU came into this game as a 4.5-point favorite. They blew that out of the water. Easily covered it, winning by 19. I mean, at halftime, the people in Vegas were like, oh, this looks pretty good. And then SMU blitzed Pitt in the second half, 52-35. So this was a really good win. This was a good win because you got back to your brand of basketball. It was a really good win because you dominated in the paint. And also, by the way, you got 17 bench points. Now, 10 of them came from one dude. But, I would have liked to see Jermaine O'Neal take more than one shot. But again, don't force it. Play within yourself. Play within the flow of the game. And Jermaine O'Neal Jr. got 4 rebounds and a steal. Or 5 rebounds, excuse me. I'll take it. I'll take that playing within the game. Jaden Toombs got 10 points and 4 rebounds. Sam Walters didn't hit a 3, but he was letting them fly. I'll tell you that. Just didn't hit them. Left them short, which, you know what? They were online. They were just a little bit short. You know what I'll chalk that up to? Being on the road, across country. I'm okay with that. He wasn't gun shy. He let him go. BJ Davis-Ray got in on the action. 5 points. All around, it was a great game. It was a pretty good game all the way around for SMU. And this is something they should hang their hat on going forward because they see the formula. They see their best way to win. Now go duplicate it. And by the way, your upcoming games for SMU, if you're SMU, are against 2 teams that aren't very good. I mean, Notre Dame is going to be a quad 3 game at home on Tuesday night at 6 o'clock, which finally they get an early one. And then you go on the road to play a Syracuse team that because of their standing in the net right now would be a quad 1 opportunity. But everybody knows Syracuse is not very good. So, they can't even figure out what to do with their lineups. 4-7 in the conference. So, you're in a stretch of games right now, if you're SMU, where what you need to focus on going forward, and we'll talk about this in more detail in coming shows, but what you need to be focusing on is playing your game day after day after day and perfecting your formula against these teams that aren't very good. So when you do go back up against a team that is very good, like you're going to go back up against Louisville once again next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, you're going to go up against Louisville. You will face a Cal team that's on the bubble. You're going to take on a Miami team that's been up and down this year but can be pretty solid. So you still have teams that are going to be competitive. Can you perfect your formula and take that into those games? That's what the next couple of games should be all about. All right, coming up next here on Locked On SMU, Jaron Pierre Jr., man. This is a dude that's starting to catch my eye in terms of what could he be at the next level. I'll tell you why that is, and I'll tell you how I feel about him on the other side. Keep it here on Locked On SMU. We're brought to you today by our friends at FanDuel. The winter games are officially here, and if you're anything like us, you're locking in for events you only get to see on the biggest stage once every 4 years. And that's why the winter games on FanDuel just makes more sense. From medal counts to individual events to finding your angle on the sports you care the most about, FanDuel gives you more ways to stay connected to the action. So you want to cash in on the drama of curling matches that start slow and somehow get intense fast? Or what about speed skating races that are decided by inches, or hockey games that feel different right from the opening face-off? The winter games are on, and there's no better way to follow them than with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. All right, welcome back here on Locked On SMU. Appreciate you making us your first listen of the day. And if you're new here, first of all, welcome and glad you're here. But make sure you hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. It will help us out a lot with the show and with the company as well. And we want to tell you about our Everydayer Club. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is for you. So what do you get with the Everydayer Club if you make us your first listen every single day? Well, you will get an ad-free version of this audio podcast. Yes, this show right here, ad-free, no ad interruptions, with Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or compatible with any other major podcast distributor. Plus, you will also get members-only Discord access, where you can hop on a Discord server, hang out with other Locked On Everydayers, and some of the hosts as well. So make sure you tap into the Everydayer Club, $5 a month or $50 for the entire year at the link in the show notes, or go to lockedonsmu.supercast.com to get started. Okay, so Jaron Pierre Jr. has really started to kick it into gear, man. I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Jaron Pierre Jr. And another 20-pointer in the win over Pitt, 8 of 11 shooting from the floor. He's now averaging 17.5 a night, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and around a steal. His shooting splits are 47% from the field, 37% from three, and 77% from the foul line. And at 6'5", 210, he's turning into an intriguing prospect for the NBA. That's my take. He is turning into an intriguing NBA prospect. Now, I need to set a couple of guardrails here. Am I saying Jaron Pierre is going to be a first-round pick in the NBA? No, I'm not there yet. But we have seen middle second-round picks that have baked a little bit in the G League that have then become NBA contributors. Now, Jaron Pierre at 6'5", 210 has a good framework for his skill set. And his skill set is he is a natural two-guard. Now, is he slightly undersized for a two-guard? Maybe, but if so, slightly. So I do see two-guard in him. And what he has shown and grown with through this NBA season is that he is assertive as an attacker. He is a slasher, and he's very good at it, but he can also be a complete three-level scorer. And I think that is something that's actually coming back into the NBA game, which we started to see kind of go away for a period. But I think if you really watch the NBA and you watch some of the guys, each team has one or two guys like this. The mid-range is still alive and well in the NBA. So the ability to be a three-level scorer is still something that will carry a lot of weight. Jaron can finish at the rim, he can shoot in the mid-range, and he can hit it from three. All of this has been proven. He also has gotten better as a ball handler over the course of the season. And there has been mention made of this on multiple SMU broadcasts that there are NBA scouts in the building checking out Jaron Pierre Jr. That has happened multiple times. And I think if there is an NBA prospect on the team, it is that dude. It is that dude. And I know everybody's going to say, well, what about Boopie Miller? Well, Boopie Miller's 5'11". Remember this. Boopie Miller's listed at 5'11", probably is more around 5'10". So he's going to be undersized, and he's not a very good defender. So while Boopie certainly, I think, will get his opportunity, if we're talking about people who could really translate to the next level, the first answer off your tongue is Jaron Pierre Jr. Now, Jaron Pierre is a quintessential 3-and-D type of guy. Quintessential 3-and-D type of guy. And obviously he can lock up and cause chaos with steals and whatnot, and he can shoot it. My comp to him right off the bat are going to be two people. Avery Bradley and a little bit of a KCP type vibe, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, but I'm going to go with Avery Bradley here. Guys that can dribble it a little bit, but can score everywhere, finish at the cup, athletic to dunk on you as well. If you remember the early years of Avery Bradley coming out of Texas, that's what he was able to do. So Avery Bradley would be a pro comp if I had to give one for Jaron Pierre Jr. But to me, this looks like a guy for SMU that could get picked in the middle to back end of the second round if he gets picked, and then he'll be in the G League for a couple of years. And if he lands in the right system and gets the right opportunities to develop with the right staff, this is a guy that I think could, in a couple of years, we could potentially see in the NBA, and then from there you just see what happens. But he's turning into a nice star for SMU with the way that he can push pace, that he can generate his own offense, and then still be physical and be a pest defensively. Because he doesn't back down there. Yes, his 0.8 steals per game is not the sexiest thing in the world, but you got to watch the games and see how he gets down in the stance and guards. So, from that perspective, obviously he can rebound the ball well as well. And I think he's going to be the X factor going forward. I think for the rest of this season, he will be the SMU X factor because I believe that when he generates his own offense and he's aggressive and assertive, along with what Boopie Miller can do and BJ Edwards has proven to do, that takes SMU over the top. It's not your best player necessarily that takes you over the top. It's the second and the third option. Because if you could have the better second and third option in any given matchup, now all of a sudden you're cooking with gas because you've got options all over the place in terms of floor spacing and where you put them on the floor, and the defense can't load to one side and forget about you, and they got to respect everything about you too. That's how you really can make yourself a force. So, look, Jaron Pierre, in his last few games, shot 73% against Pitt, 50% against NC State, had a stinker against Louisville where he shot 27% and only had 9 points. But then before that, 61% and then 42%. He's on a heater right now. With one exception, he is on a heater in the last couple of weeks. And he will make SMU better if he continues to stay on this pace as we head down the stretch of the regular season and into the postseason tournaments. But I'm liking what I see from him. I think he's an NBA prospect for sure. He's going to get his opportunity in the league, I believe. And then after that, we'll just see what happens. But I do think this is a potential G League guy for a year or two, and then see what he does in the league if he ever gets his opportunity and gets within the right system. All right, coming up next, we'll close up the show talking one more thing about basketball that I recognize, and that is SMU is in a danger zone when it comes to its schedule. Why? I'll tell you on the other side. So keep it here on Locked On SMU. We'll finish out the show coming up next. The new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and feels. That's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track. From bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room, Wayfair makes it easy to start the new year fresh. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh, all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or upgrading your work from home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for your style and your budget. So whether it's new bedding that I've picked up with accent pillows and it completely changes how my bedroom feels, or you can find pieces that match your style without spending a fortune so that your space feels cleaner, calmer, and ultimately more put together. It honestly makes getting back into a routine this new year feel a lot more manageable. So get organized, refreshed, and on track this new year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style for every home. Hiring isn't just about finding someone willing to take the job. It's about finding the right person with the right background who can actually help move your business forward. And if you want a candidate to match what you're looking for, Indeed sponsored jobs is the move. Because instead of hoping the right person stumbles across your post, Indeed helps you match with quality candidates by boosting your job listing to people who fit your specific criteria, like skills, certifications, and location. So if I was the one hiring, I wouldn't want someone who can just help me out. I'd want someone with real experience who could just jump right in and make this thing go. It saves time because you're spending less energy sorting through mismatches. And with sponsored jobs, your post gets seen by candidates who are actually a fit. And here's a stat that says it all. In the 1 minute that I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help you get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, do it the right way and do it with Indeed. All right, final segment here on Locked On SMU as we close up the show. And let's talk some tournament, because that is going to be the prevailing storyline for everybody heading down the stretch of the season. Now, I checked in with our friends at On3, and they have right now project SMU as a 9 seed in the NCAA tournament right now after the win over Pitt. So the win over Pitt kind of stabilized things. It's not going to look sexy. Notre Dame's going to be a quad 3 opportunity. Depending on the metrics, it looks as if Syracuse is going to be a quad 1 opportunity with it being on the road. So you got a little bit of chances to enhance your resume, but you also have chances to make the resume look really bad. Really bad. Now, there are a lot of people who do this for a living, whether it's on ESPN or CBS or wherever, that actually watch the games and, don't just look at the raw, is it a quad 1 or quad 2, whatever. And because of that, SMU's in a pretty dangerous spot. So yes, you could enhance your resume with another quad 1 opportunity this weekend, and you'll stay undefeated in quad 3 and 4 if you win the game against Notre Dame on Tuesday night. But you could really hurt your resume this week. Now you're saying, well, Grayson, there's a quad 1 opportunity against Syracuse, and well, a quad 1 loss isn't going to look the worst. That's why I said there are people there that watch the games. Because yes, Syracuse is going to be a quad 1 game in name alone. But if you lose to a Syracuse team that's 4-7 in conference, and a team that we look at and we all know that is not all that good at 13-11, we're going to be looking at you kind of sideways. Because the Syracuse team has been bumpy all season long. They've been disjointed. There's talks about firing their coach. Kai and Anthony didn't play the entirety of the game. Now Carmelo is feeling some type of way about it. There's just a lot unsettled going on up in Syracuse, New York right now. But even worse is if you are to lose the game to Notre Dame, that would be a massive, massive blemish. Because again, not only is it a quad 3 opportunity, everybody knows Notre Dame is not good. So when you really break it down, sure, you can look at it and say, oh, well, it's a quad 3 or it's a quad 1, and we can talk about all the quads and the net rankings and all of that, and that's all fine and cool. I love the net rankings. But you also got to realize, is the team you're playing against actually good? And you're not going to convince me that whether it's Notre Dame or whether it's a 13-11 team that still would qualify as a quad 1 purely because it's on the road, that SMU is going to be just fine if they lost to that team. And it's not going to be weighed any differently. Also, one of our listeners in our YouTube chats has constantly pointed this out, that the rankings and the quads by the end of the season will fluctuate. So just because it's a quad 1 game now, and by the way, that game against Syracuse would be on the borderline of a quad 1 game because they're 68th in the net. I believe if you go below 70, even if it's on the road, that drops you to a quad 2. I believe. I'll make sure I double check on that before this episode is over, but also for the fact that, yes, they fluctuate, but teams also know that they ain't good. So you're in a precarious spot here if you're SMU. You have got to win. You got to win these 2 games. By the way, quad 1 on the road goes all the way to 75. So it's likely going to be a quad 1 game. So either way you slice it, though, you've got to win these 2 games. Because if you're SMU right now, the Mustangs sit in the 30s, in the net, 34. They are 3-6 against quad 1, which is pretty solid. 4-1 against quad 2, and 9-0 against quads 3 and 4. You need to make sure that you finish the season undefeated against quads 3 and 4. And it's not for purposes of just getting into the NCAA tournament. We're beyond talking about that unless something, really unforeseen in a bad way happens. We're beyond that. SMU's going to be a tournament team. But now we're talking about matchups, and we're talking about trying to get to the second weekend of the tournament. And if you want to get to a 7 seed, what's the importance about getting a 7 seed? It's not because, to just avoid the 8-9 matchup. No, it's to avoid playing the number 1 in the second round of the tournament. That's the importance of getting to the 7 seed. It's so you don't have to play a team like Michigan or a team like Arizona or a team like potentially Duke or somebody like that in the second round of the tournament. That's the whole point. The whole point is so you don't have to play one of those dudes in the second round, and you've got a better matchup to get you to the second weekend of the tournament so we can keep talking about this team in terms of playing games for an additional week. That's what you're trying to make sure that you set yourself up favorably for. SMU could get into an 8-9 matchup regardless if they're the 8 or the 9 seed and be okay and still have a chance to win because of the way they score the basketball. But if you're talking about trying to score the basketball against a Michigan team that I don't know if y'all have watched, but they're really damn good, or an Arizona team that is undoubtedly the best team in the country, you would rather not face those dudes until you have to face those dudes. So from that frame point, you're trying to make sure that you do all your work in the regular season, you win as many quad 1s, but even more importantly, you stay undefeated in the back 2 quads to make sure that you don't force yourself into a situation like that. That's the whole point here. The whole point going forward isn't really to get in the tournament. Again, SMU is the better team of most of the teams that they face the rest of the season. They're better than Notre Dame. They're better than Syracuse. They're definitely better than Boston College. Better than Cal, Stanford, probably better than Miami, but we'll see what that team looks like. And then they're definitely better than Florida State. We've already beaten them once, and Florida State isn't very good. Your focus should be stacking up those quad 3 and 4s, winning your quad 1 opportunities, so you can make sure that you are in a better place when it comes time to take on the second round of the NCAA tournament if you are able to make it through the first round. That's why they're in such of a danger zone here. That's why they've got to win these next couple of games so you can set yourself up better to get to the second weekend of the tournament and get yourself to the Sweet 16. That's the whole point here. All right. Excellent show here today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and making me your first listen of the day. And remember, if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is for you. Make sure you tap into Locked On SMU's Everydayer Club with ad-free versions of this show, plus members-only Discord access and more. Go to lockedonsmu.supercast.com or click on the link in the show notes to learn more. And for those of you here on YouTube, make your second listen of the day the Locked On 24/7 National Podcast Network YouTube channel. And for those of you on audio, make sure you make college football, Locked On College Football, your second listen of the day. All right, we'll talk to you guys tomorrow for a Tuesday edition. Take it easy, everybody.